you ever had a moment that made you realize who you truly are? For me, that moment came alone in my room, in front of my mirror, staring at a gold Star of David necklace I suddenly wasn't sure if I should wear. The necklace gifted by my grandmother years ago, my daily necklace of choice, worn for years without thinking twice. But that morning, I hesitated. To understand why that journey mattered, you need to understand the story that came before it. One that began in my hometown and pushed me to grow. Because that identity crisis didn't start with just a necklace, it started long before. When I moved, I thought I was just changing towns. New city, new friends, new routines, nothing more. But looking back, that move caused a transformation. I didn't know that within months, the world would shift, and so would I. Growing up in Bakersfield, I was often both the first Iranian that people met and the sole Jew that people knew. I was the clear example that contradicted their exaggerated views of both groups. For many, it was difficult to understand my conflicting identities. "Aren't your people at war with each other?" someone once asked, and I didn't know how to respond. I was constantly bridging worlds together, carrying my Persian heritage in one hand and my Jewish faith in the other, trying to make them fit in spaces that were rarely understood. It taught me early on that resilience isn't something you pick, it's something you protect. I learned to become the translator of my own stories, showing people that cultures don't have to clash. They can coexist, harmonize, and even strengthen one another. And that understanding, the ability to stay flexible and not let it bring you down, was our greatest story. Prior to my move, I never thought much about my identity. I mean, it was a part of me, but it wasn't something I talked about or felt deeply connected to. But moving didn't just change my address. In Bakersfield, I wasn't surrounded by people who shared similar backgrounds. So I learned to keep certain parts about who I am quiet. But moving to Los Angeles changed that. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who looked like me, ate like me, celebrated like me, and understood the parts of stories that I used to skip over. Being surrounded by that kind of familiarity woke me up, and it led me to embrace pieces of my identity that I used to overlook. Walking onto a new campus where no one knew my name or my story was unsettling. And though at first it made me feel small, it over time led to empowerment. That choice to be visible instead of invisible pushed me to grow and find a better version of myself. It taught me that resilience can come from starting over. And sometimes the biggest growth happens the moment you step outside the world that once felt comfortable. There was a whole new world of opportunity and change right in front of me. But yet there I was, contemplating whether or not I should hook on a necklace or leave it stranded on my drawer. The day before, the calendar had hit October 7th, 2023. Just another Saturday morning. But when I opened my phone, the headlines were everywhere. News of fear and violence spreading across the world. Suddenly, people who had shared similar backgrounds felt that same fear. Watching not just an act of terrorism, but a moment that stripped away the sense of safety many people had once held. In that instant, my cultural identity stopped feeling distant or symbolic. It felt real, raw, and right there. In the moments before where I hesitated putting on that necklace, I'd think, what if someone says something? But that hesitation shocked me. Why should a symbol of faith ever feel like a target? But as fear grew, something else grew stronger: resilience. At school, people began talking, sharing, supporting. WhatsApp groups turned into lifelines. Our weekly gatherings turned into moments where simply showing up felt like saying, "We're still here." People who had never spoken up before stood shoulder to shoulder at rallies. We didn't hide, we didn't harden, we didn't break, but we bent. That bending, the ability to stay flexible under pressure, became our greatest strength. The word resilience comes from the Latin resiliere, which means to spring back. It doesn't mean never bending. It means bending and still returning stronger. And I saw that truth reflected in my own community. We didn't collapse under pressure, we adapted. We found new ways to connect, and each act, no matter how small, was a way of bending without breaking. There's a quote I love that says, "They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds." And to me, that's resilience. Not only surviving, but growing in the very soil meant to silence you. And that's what I felt happening inside me too. Taking pain and turning it into purpose. And learning to grow from the soil of adversity, I realized that you don't choose who you are, you learn. Because sometimes you don't find your community. Sometimes your community finds the version of you that's finally strong enough to show up. And I've learned that strength doesn't always look like standing tall. Sometimes it looks like reaching out, admitting you're scared, or letting someone else hold you up for a while. It's the friend who checks in after a hard day, the teacher who listens, the stranger who offers a random act of kindness when it's the least mentioned. Those acts of compassion, small, ordinary acts, are the building blocks of resilience that keeps the world from falling under its own weight. And maybe that's the lesson. Resilience isn't about being unshakable. It's about knowing we're not alone when we shake. It's about knowing that unity can exist in uncertainty, that hope can exist in uncertainty. Because at the end of the day, resilience isn't the story of one community. It's the story of all of us. The story of falling and choosing to rise together. And now, when I look in that mirror and I see that necklace, I don't hesitate anymore. I stand taller. Thank you.